Hello, I'm John Briggs, and I'd like to welcome you to the Black and White Guide to Fast Ethernet. In this program, we'll be examining all aspects of this sometimes complex, high-speed networking technology. Towards the end of the show, we'll look at ways in which you can capitalize upon the many sales opportunities. Fast Ethernet is rapidly becoming the weapon of choice in the battle for bandwidth. As networks grow, applications become more bandwidth hungry and users more demanding. The traditional Ethernet standard, therefore, can no longer keep up. In the last decade, desktop computers have seen CPU power grow by a factor of 14, while network bandwidth has remained constant. This disparity is developing into a crisis situation for many network managers. Fast Ethernet is 10 times faster than traditional Ethernet, and as we shall see, is the most scalable and cost-effective high-bandwidth solution. I'm joined in the studio by two networking supremos, Lance Murrah of SMC and Tony Wand of Ideal. Gentlemen, welcome. Tony, I'll start with you, if I may. Why is it that Fast Ethernet is taking centre stage at the moment?
The demand for increased bandwidth at the desktop is the major factor in the increase in sales in Fast Ethernet. And that's driven by the need for bandwidth in the new business applications, multimedia, video conferencing, those sort of products.
Lance?
Yeah, Tony's right. Bandwidth is certainly the primary driver. But in addition, Fast Ethernet is fully standardized. So you've got the multi-vendor interoperability that you'd want of any new technology. This in turn drives the costs down. In addition, the network management is very simple going from Ethernet to Fast Ethernet because you're using the same frame types in Fast Ethernet as you do in Ethernet.
Tony, is it an expensive technology?
No, it's not an expensive technology because it's easy to justify the increase in productivity because you're getting 10 times the speed. And in fact, the delta between standard Ethernet and Fast Ethernet is now reducing rapidly. As Lance has said, competition in the market tends to drive the price of these things down.
Lance, I assume the economics of the chip industry has something to do with that as well.
Absolutely. Any technology, as far down the integration curve you can get on the silicon integration, the more economical it's going to be for resellers and end users. Right now, we're probably about a generation behind Fast Ethernet, Ethernet over Fast Ethernet. But if you look going forward, there's no inherent reason why Fast Ethernet can't be at the same price to the market as regular Ethernet is.
So therefore, Lance, can I take it that Fast Ethernet will completely replace Ethernet in the future?
I think completely replace is too strong of a word, John. I think if you look at the network evolution over time, we're probably more talking about how to integrate Fast Ethernet into existing networks. Clearly, there's no one technology that's going to serve all the needs of all the different users. We just think Fast Ethernet is going to serve the needs of the bulk of the users out there.
Okay, that I understand. But does everyone actually need the extra bandwidth that Fast Ethernet provides, Tony?
No, not all users are going to need 100 megabit technology. There are still desktop publishing and word processing, Excel spreadsheets, that sort of thing, that won't need 100 megabit technology. And with the watchword being protection of investment and leverage of investment, there's still a lot of life left in standard Ethernet technology.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for the moment. We'll be talking to you later on in the programme. As we've heard, Fast Ethernet is an evolution of the Ethernet standard. It's therefore important to have a firm grasp of this older technology in order to get to grips with its younger brother.
Ethernet is by far the most popular LAN technology in use today, with industry estimates indicating that over 40 million Ethernet nodes have been installed worldwide. The Ethernet system consists of three basic elements. Firstly, the physical medium or cabling, used to carry signals between computers. Secondly, the media access control rules, which allow multiple computers to arbitrate fairly access to the shared channel. Thirdly, the frame or packet, which is a standardized set of bits used to carry data over the system. Ethernet systems have no central controller. Each computer on the network, known as a station, operates independently. A station transmits Ethernet signals serially over the shared medium to every other station on the network. To send data, the station first determines that the channel is idle, then sends the data in the form of an Ethernet frame or packet. The MAC mechanism used in Ethernet is based on a system called Carrier Sense Multiple Access with Collision Detection. CSMA-CD works like this. First, all stations must wait for the network to be idle. If a station is transmitting, there will be a signal called carrier. If this is detected, transmission is not possible. When carrier ceases, transmission may begin. Because signals take some time to get from one end of the network to the other, stations do not receive the signals at the same time. Thus, two stations may perceive the network to be idle at the same time and begin transmission simultaneously. When this happens, the system senses the collision of signals and stops transmission. This is the collision detect element. The stations that were trying to transmit simultaneously reschedule their transmissions, each choosing a random time interval before retransmitting. This prevents the stations from trying to retransmit in lockstep. Collisions become increasingly common as traffic on the network builds up. To deal with this, the stations automatically begin expanding the set of times, called back-off times, from which the random retransmission time is chosen.
Fast Ethernet is essentially the same as Ethernet, except that it runs 10 times faster. The trade-off for this increase in bandwidth is a reduction in the diameter of the network, the physical distance between devices on the LAN. The development of Fast Ethernet, which is also called 100 base T, required a new set of standards to ensure interoperability between the various vendors. Let's now look at these in some detail.
Like Ethernet, Fast Ethernet comprises three elements: the MAC layer, the media-independent interface layer, and the cabling itself. The MAC layer is the same CSMA-CD protocol as 10 base T Ethernet. It works in exactly the same way, the only difference being that it runs 10 times faster. The MII layer defines a standard interface between the MAC layer and the cabling. It can be implemented either internally on the network card or externally via a 40-pin connector. There are three standards for physical media in Fast Ethernet: 100 base TX, 100 base T4, and 100 base FX. 100 base TX is a specification for Fast Ethernet over two pairs of Category 5 UTP or Type 1 STP cabling. The wiring scheme is identical to 10 base T Ethernet, one pair being used to transmit and one to receive. The UTP connector, an RJ45, is also identical to the one used for 10 base T. The STP connector is a DB9, the same as is used in token ring networks. 100 base T4 is the specification for Fast Ethernet over four pairs of Category 3, 4, or 5 UTP cabling. This scheme uses three pairs for transmit and receive, and the fourth to listen for collisions. 100 base FX is the specification for Fast Ethernet over two strands of fiber cable. One strand is used to transmit and the other to receive. The connectors are the same as those used with other fiber networks, such as FDDI.
To understand how Fast Ethernet can be integrated into the LAN, we need to look at the hardware building blocks. These are the network cards, the hubs, switches and cabling. Fast Ethernet network cards look very much like regular Ethernet cards. They connect the desktop PCs and servers to the Fast Ethernet network. These cards usually communicate through the PCI interface. Many manufacturers produce selectable 10-100 megabit network cards, which can operate at Ethernet and Fast Ethernet bandwidths. These are often a sensible choice for computers awaiting the upgrade to Fast Ethernet. This is a stack of hubs, or repeaters. A hub connects a number of devices together, such as desktop computers, which plug into the ports on the side. It repeats or retransmits incoming Ethernet signals from one port to all the other ports. This means that all devices attached to the hub share the bandwidth. There are two types of Fast Ethernet hubs, Class 1 and Class 2. Class 1 hubs translate signals from different types of cabling, whereas Class 2 hubs transmit signals directly across one type of media.
Fast Ethernet hubs combine a number of network users into a part of the LAN called a collision domain. They have multiple shared ports, meaning that the bandwidth is shared by the collision domain. They can be managed or unmanaged. Hubs are also known as repeaters. As you can see, the hub repeats or retransmits the fast Ethernet signal from one user to all the other users on the LAN. Fast Ethernet hubs can be stacked so that a large number of users can be supported in the collision domain. Stackable hubs have replaced chassis-based hubs in medium-sized LANs. The stack of hubs, though it might support over 100 users, is still one logical hub. This means that all users on the stack are sharing the 100 megabit bandwidth. Fast Ethernet stackable hubs offer many advantages in terms of flexibility and scalability over normal standalone hubs. They are commonly equipped with management functions such as at-a-glance LEDs on the hub itself, or provision for SNMP or ARMON attachments. They are usually Class 1 hubs, capable of connecting, for example, a 100 base TX workgroup to a 100 base FX backbone switch. Fast Ethernet stackable hubs can be segmented either by external switches or by internal switched ports. This subdivides the stack into separate collision domains, thus reducing the number of users sharing bandwidth. This enables the network to be grown first, then segmented as the demand for bandwidth increases.
This similar-looking box here is a switch. It also has ports to which devices are attached, but instead of transmitting an incoming signal across the entire network, as the hub does, the switch routes the packets of data to their intended destinations. This means that each port on a switch retains dedicated full bandwidth. Therefore, each Ethernet port on a switch connects at 10 megabits, and each fast Ethernet port can connect at 100 megabits. Switch ports can be connected to other switches, hubs, or to individual devices that need a lot of bandwidth, such as servers or power users.
The graphic illustrates the basic difference between a hub on the left and a switch on the right. While the hub sends the signal to all the stations on the LAN, the switch makes an intelligent decision to send the data to its intended user only. Switches are essentially high-speed multi-port bridges. They allow multiple concurrent and independent connections to be established between individual ports connected to the switch. This allows pairs of ports to communicate concurrently without affecting other ports. Full bandwidth is therefore provided to each port in the fast Ethernet switch, unlike a hub, where the bandwidth is shared between the ports. Switches have various configurations. First, they can have a number of fast Ethernet uplink ports combined with standard 10 megabit ports. The graphic illustrates a 10 megabit connection to a hub. This is a low-cost way of integrating fast Ethernet with Ethernet. It can occur at either the desktop or workgroup level, with the uplinks connecting either power users or servers at the desktop level, or different LAN segments at the workgroup level. Switches can also be configured with a number of selectable 10-100 megabit ports. These ports allow gradual migration to fast Ethernet as costs permit or bandwidth demands escalate. Desktop switches are typically unmanaged, whereas workgroup switches have facilities for SNMP and ARMON built into them, and are often configured with at-a-glance management LEDs on the side of the switch. Switching also enables micro-segmentation, the division of a LAN into a number of smaller segments, each with their own collision domain, thus boosting available bandwidth per user. Individual users that require a lot of bandwidth, such as servers and power users, can be switched directly into the system, giving them a collision domain to themselves.
Fast Ethernet was designed to integrate easily into existing 10 megabit LANs. This means that fast Ethernet runs on most existing Ethernet cabling infrastructures. However, the trade-off for greater bandwidth is a reduction in network diameter. This means that generally two devices can be no further than 100 meters apart, unless fiber cable is used.
Fast Ethernet uses Category 3, 4 and 5 unshielded twisted pair cabling, shielded twisted pair and fiber optic cabling. Category 5 UTP is the standard cabling used for traditional Ethernet networks and is found in over 75% of all installations. This type of cabling will support full duplex operations on the 100 base TX standard. Category 3 and 4 are also found in a minority of Ethernet cable plants. These can be used for fast Ethernet by utilizing the 100 base T4 standard. This standard operates over 4 pairs of wires. However, as it lacks dedicated send and receive pairs, 100 base T4 cannot support full duplex operation. Shielded twisted pair cabling is used by token ring networks. It can be used for 100 base TX fast Ethernet, supporting full duplex if required. This makes the migration from token ring to fast Ethernet simple and inexpensive. Fiber is commonly used in fast Ethernet as a backbone or as a link to an FDDI network. Fiber cabling has different connectivity rules to UTP or STP cabling. For example, a full duplex fiber link can stretch up to 2 kilometers.
Full duplex fast Ethernet, like full duplex Ethernet, connects servers or workstations to switches at twice the normal bandwidth, providing the extremely high data rates required by some servers and power users. In fast Ethernet, this doubles the connection from 100 megabits to 200 megabits. Switches can also connect to other switches at this higher bandwidth. Of course, both the network card and the switch need to be capable of supporting full duplex mode.
Here you can see 2 full duplex links, one between a server and the switch, and the other between a power user and the switch. The server is connected via a fast Ethernet port on the switch, running at 200 megabits. The power user is running off a traditional Ethernet port at 20 megabits. As full duplex links are direct links between only 2 devices, there is no attempt to create a shared channel, and therefore no possibility of collision. Thus, devices at the ends of a full duplex Ethernet link do not have to listen for collisions or for other transmissions when sending data. Another advantage of full duplex is that fiber optic links can be much longer than the specifications for a normal 100 base FX segment. Because full duplex does not adhere to the round-trip timing rules of a collision domain, the fiber cable can be as long as the optical loss budget permits. A 200 megabit fast Ethernet full duplex fiber link can be up to 2 kilometers long.
As I've previously mentioned, many fast Ethernet components can run at both 10 megabits and 100 megabits per second. In order to connect to other pieces of hardware, these components will perform a function known as auto-negotiation. Auto-negotiation is similar to negotiation between modems, where both sides will seek the highest speed at which they can transfer data between each other. For example, a 10100 switch may connect with a 10100 network card in a server. The 2 devices will interrogate each other and discover that they can both operate at 100 megabits full duplex, and they will then both operate at this speed. Similarly, if a 10100 card in a PC connects to an Ethernet hub, then the card will elect to work at 10 megabits, which is the highest common data rate. Fast Ethernet has many connectivity rules which need to be understood before a network can be planned. These relate to the different cabling types which can be used and the maximum distance allowed between devices.
A fast Ethernet workgroup is configured in a star topology and is built around a maximum of 2 hubs. Each workgroup forms a separate LAN segment or collision domain. The maximum diameter of the collision domain and the maximum distance between 2 stations on the same LAN segment is limited by 2 factors: the round-trip timing delay and the type of media used. The maximum cable distance between any 2 network devices is 100 meters for UTP or STP cabling and 412 meters for fiber cabling. This extends to 2 kilometers for a fiber connection in full duplex mode. Like Ethernet, the rules governing network diameters for fast Ethernet networks depend upon the class of hub used and the type of cabling employed. For example, the table shows how the maximum diameter of a network with one class 2 hub using a combination of both 100 base T4 and 100 base FX is 304 meters. Incorporating switches into a standard Ethernet network is one way of increasing bandwidth.
However, many network managers get confused over whether to implement a switched Ethernet solution or make the leap to fast Ethernet. In fact, there's no need to choose, since fast Ethernet is a natural migration of switched Ethernet. The difference between the two technologies is best described with a road traffic analogy.
Let us say that there is a distance of 500 miles between two towns. The speed limit is 70 miles per hour and there's a two-lane motorway joining the towns. Under ideal conditions, the trip should take just over 7 hours. There are two kinds of bandwidth problem that might apply in this scenario. For instance, if increasing numbers of people wish to travel between the towns and the two-lane motorway becomes overcrowded, the 7-hour journey might easily become a 9-hour journey. This is analogous to an increased number of users on the network. One solution is to add 2 more lanes of traffic in each direction. The increased capacity allows the journey to be made in 7 hours once again. This is analogous to switching 10 megabit Ethernet. The second kind of problem runs like this. Because some people want to travel more quickly than in 7 hours, an alternative mode of transport is sought. The solution here is to add a single-track high-speed bullet train travelling at 150 miles per hour, shortening the journey time to 3¼ hours. This is analogous to a shared fast Ethernet installation, which is appropriate for multimedia users and other bandwidth-hungry applications on the network.
We've looked at the various parts of the fast Ethernet puzzle in isolation. Now it's time to put it all together. One of the main points of fast Ethernet is its interconnectivity with traditional Ethernet and the ease of integration and migration that this allows. Let's look at some typical migration scenarios showing fast Ethernet being integrated into a legacy Ethernet LAN.
Our legacy workgroup consists of a few users and a single server connected to an Ethernet hub. The 10 megabit bandwidth is shared by the server and all the workstations on the LAN. As the user community increases, we future-proof our network by providing all new users with PCI bus computers and network cards that can operate in full or half-duplex mode at either 10 megabits or 100 megabits. These new users connected to an Ethernet network now can be moved to a fast Ethernet network sometime in the future without replacing any of the equipment. Expanding the user community has increased network contention and decreased network performance. This signals the need for more bandwidth. First, the network is subdivided into multiple 10 megabit segments. With fewer users on a segment, there is more available bandwidth for each user. Microsegmentation, by reducing traffic on each segment, improves overall network performance. Next, an Ethernet workgroup switch with a fast Ethernet uplink is added to the LAN to interconnect the segments. Last, a cascadable Class 2 or stackable fast Ethernet hub is connected to the uplink port on the switch. This hub provides a shared 100 megabit segment for the servers, so they will be able to respond to requests more quickly. New distributed applications that stress the bandwidth and response time of the 10 megabit network are launched. The power users running these high bandwidth applications experience less than optimal performance, and the servers have difficulty in handling the high bandwidth. As traffic increases, the response time for other users also decreases. This results in renewed requests for additional bandwidth. First, a fast Ethernet switch is added to the LAN. Then the Ethernet switch and fast Ethernet hub are connected to this new switch. Next, to improve server performance, the servers are outfitted with fast Ethernet 10100 network cards and connected directly to ports on the new switch. This gives each server a bandwidth of 200 megabits in full duplex mode. Last, the power users are moved to the fast Ethernet hub. Once on a 100 megabit shared segment, these users can handle applications with bursts approaching 100 megabits. As more users migrate to high bandwidth applications, the cycle repeats itself. These new power users experience less than optimal performance, and the response time for other users decreases. Again, there are requests for additional bandwidth. It's time to expand the 100 megabit workgroup. A second fast Ethernet hub is joined to the first. either stacked or cascaded, and the power users are connected to the new hub. As more power users join the Fast Ethernet workgroup, traffic on the 100 megabit segment increases, again slowing network performance. In addition, there is now a waiting list of power users who need to join the 100 megabit workgroup. This signals the need for still more bandwidth. First, the Fast Ethernet workgroup is segmented, and the segments are interconnected via the Fast Ethernet switch. Then additional Fast Ethernet hubs are connected to the switch to accommodate the new users. This keeps contention for the network at a minimum and increases the available bandwidth. As you can see, Fast Ethernet can be effectively integrated into a legacy Ethernet installation, transparently integrated into the infrastructure and combined with switching technology to enhance performance and improve response times.
The programme so far should have given you a thorough understanding of Fast Ethernet, so we now return to our experts for advice on how to make the most out of selling this technology. Lance, give us, if you would, some simple guidelines for choosing between Fast Ethernet and Switched Ethernet.
Well, the difference between Fast Ethernet and Switched Ethernet are basically the peak demands. Certainly Fast Ethernet is very peak and deliver the full 100 megabits per second of bandwidth. So where you would typically use that would be in your file servers, where you're going to have a lot of demand, as well as your power users who are doing very large file transfers back and forth. Most other applications, just segmenting your network and using Switch 10 works just fine.
Okay, Tony, how do you spot a Fast Ethernet sales opportunity?
I think in the qualification process, when you're specifying a network, you're going to look at different user groups or different individuals' requirements, and where you've got, again, large file transfer or sort of a bandwidth-hungry application, you're going to specify 100 megabit and 10 megabit where you've just got standard business applications.
But there are cost objections, aren't there? I mean, you've got to take those into consideration.
You do. I think, again, the buzzword is going to be return on investment, and I think it's a fairly simple calculation because you're getting 10 times the bandwidth for double the cost. Therefore, it doesn't take too much to justify because of the increase in productivity and less waiting between, processing jobs.
In other words, get out what you put in.
Absolutely.
Okay. There are associated sales opportunities too, aren't they? What are they?
Well, whenever you're specifying a network to increase bandwidth or build infrastructure, you should be looking at your server to make sure you've got enough memory in the server, enough storage in the server. And of course, with networks, management is a key issue. Again, as we've said, network management on traditional Ethernet and Fast Ethernet is very similar. So you should look at your network management software suite and ensure you've got all the tools to monitor the performance of the network and spot bottlenecks and problems that might occur.
Okay, gentlemen, I get all the benefits that you're telling me that Fast Ethernet has, but the final question, Lance, really has to be, what about the future? How future-proof is Ethernet and therefore people's investment?
Well, Fast Ethernet is probably the most future-proof technology out there, but clearly, John, no one technology is going to serve the needs of every user for all time. But for the problems of today, the bandwidth problems people are having, Fast Ethernet clearly is the best alternative, the most economical choice for the real peak demands. Going forward, there probably is an area where ATM might make sense if you're using real-time video or graphics, but for the very large percentage of the user's needs out there, Fast Ethernet in combination with Switched Ethernet will solve the problems.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for taking part in our program today. With the natural migration from standard Ethernet, the use of existing cabling and the ease of hardware integration, Fast Ethernet is the strongest contender in the fast networking arena. The advent of more data-intensive applications and a larger number of users make it imperative for companies to work out a strategy for increasing bandwidth. For most network managers, this means Fast Ethernet. I'm John Briggs, and this has been the Black and White Guide.